Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. You can also find Gorilla Brave on the links below. Yes, we've changed the website. We are .com now instead of .love. And we've changed the blog, and we will be relaunching a website. I know it's all scattered because the episodes, and everyone's a little confused on Gorilla Brave, but it is switching. Gorilla Brave is becoming a studio. It will produce content, cartoons, educational content, all of that on a greater level for everyone. Where we were going was not working in the way that I wanted. And the way that I felt the audience wanted and the feedback we were getting. So we were going to make a better, more universal system. And in the modern era where AI is involved and we have so much personal education attached to us, we really don't need a lot. You can ask AI about your business. You can ask AI about anything. So that being said, Gorilla Brave is more to learn from one another, the things that you can't learn from a computer. Okay. And that's the way the structure is going to be moving forward. So GorillaBrave.com will relaunch. You'll see the Instagram start to shift over as it becomes a studio. And by a studio, I mean creatives, content, comics, educational stories, cartoons, real life content, adult content. So it's not only the little things all the way for kids, but all the way to adults. So there's some university type systems we're breaking out. They'll all be automated, but it took executive level, quality level, creators, script writers, idea individuals, marketing advertisers to take Gorilla Brave where it needed to go. So that's the direction we're going. I have Trajan with us, guys, from TropiTai. We're re-recording part 2 just so everyone knows. How are you doing today, Trajan?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm going to anchor this for the audience before we get into this. We're in Denver, Colorado, TropiTai, guys, near Lakewood. You need to go there, okay? It blew my mind. I'm going back there this week because I need more boba tea, actually, and I'm not a boba tea fan, but Trajan might have just converted me. He might have baptized me into liking the little bobas, which the texture still freaks me out a little bit, but I get the concept. I get the flavors across the palate from a culinary standpoint, and I certainly enjoy what you're doing at your shop. I'm going to call it a shop because it is a place where people should hang out, not just go to eat. It is not just a restaurant. It's not just a coffee place. It's like why you would call a coffee shop not a coffee restaurant. You would call it a shop because you want to hang out there. Okay, do work there. That's what we're talking about. It's just a different perspective. And if you go there, anyone who goes there is here in Denver, you're going to like it a lot. And it's going to blow your mind, the differences and what Trajan's doing to make TropiTai special. Okay. For the audience, I'm going to go back part 2. I'm going to anchor it because that's where I want to launch us from. Young entrepreneurism, I understand it. Young doing mowing fields and grass, parents teaching me how to start a business, how to pay them back for using their tractors, leading into fruit and vegetable stands at 16, 15, actually 14, fruit and vegetable stands all the way through 18. Okay, working, being self-sufficient, not really wanting to work a normal job ever since I was a kid. Did I work them? Yes. Did I like them? No. Why? Because I'm just not the person that fits into a box. I don't typically do well in education, even though I have done well and have a lot of education and am pursuing a second master's degree. That being said, it had to be difficult for me. Because if it wasn't difficult, I wouldn't have put in the work. Okay. And if it wasn't difficult and I didn't see the problems in the system, I wouldn't have been able to move forward. And to the rest of the world who looks at a kid who's 18 to 22 in college, trying to work a business, trying to play soccer, thinking that I could have a relationship at the same time, not very good at that. But anyway, still not very good at that. But the business side of things, what God does in us, when God chooses at a young age, or God wants to put us in the forefront, and it looks like we're failing out of school, and society looks like we're not wanting to do what society wants us to do, it often looks like failure. But however, in the long run, it's not. Okay. Yes, I failed two classes in college for sure. Okay. Definitely. And I did just slightly fail. I completely failed. Okay. Because I didn't have interest in it, because it wasn't about business, because it was art history. And the other one was about politics on an international level, which I think is the stupidest thing ever as a believer in God, that we have boundaries and we do all these things and we're not more oriented to how to make one universal planet. Maybe we are, maybe I'm wrong. Okay. My other point about all of this that I'm going to make for everyone is, when Jesus was born, Jesus was one of the most common names that a Hebrew human could have. Jesus is Greek, just so we're aware. So during the biblical times where Jesus is around, no one's calling him Jesus unless they're Greek. Okay. But in Galilee, okay, where the name is super popular, they're speaking Hebrew, and it's Yeshua, Yeshua. So when I get this thing about Jesus and one and the only name, and some of the questions I've got recently, in the statement, we just have to be very careful here, guys. We talk about Jesus being perfect, and we use that and we say that a lot, but it's not necessarily true. Okay, in his spirituality, Jesus was perfect. But if you read about Jesus, he was born into the human body and allowed to live as a human and experience the same human mistakes, demons, sins that we all face. He's just able to battle them. Okay, does that make him perfect? Maybe. Is it because he's God that he's perfect? Maybe. But let's talk about God also as a creator, not a controller. That's why we have free will. He creates things and then allows them to be. Where does God then exist? Inside each one of us. Where do we have control? Where did the miracle happen? Only in us. A miracle stopping a hurricane is not what God does. Okay, that's not, he created the world to be the world. He's created a lot of worlds. They're dead. What do you think humans are meant to do? Oh, we're meant to be one kingdom here on earth under God, and then go bring humanity, God's animals, God's trees, God's plants to those other planets. Period. That's why it needs to be one nation. That's why we all need to be under God. That's why we need to figure out our differences, even if it's religious, and understand that that's there. Why am I anchoring this? When we talked in part 2, Trajan and I, we recorded in person. We had a lot of hiccups. I have some work to do. I need to refresh recording live on video, and I need to do it when we can do it in the evening when there's less noise at his shop. So we are going to do it, just so the audience knows. But the major thing that came out of it is Trajan being the test. We are watching Trajan's test so it can lead to his testimony, so he can lead others to entrepreneurism. Okay, why am I going to anchor this? Guess what most of the apostles were? Franchisees, the taxpayer. That's a franchise from the government to collect taxes. Okay, you're a contract employee doing a business. Franchisor. Okay, Matthew. Peter. How the heck does the guy have at least 2 fishing boats and a crew that's going to listen to his words when Jesus is like, move the ships over there? It's not Jesus that moves the ships. It's Peter telling the people that work for him to move the ships that move the ships. He would have been like, don't listen to this quack named Jesus, because there's lots of Jesuses all over the world. And who knows if this is the Jesus, or if the Jesus is even known at that point. But what I am saying is the emphasis is the entrepreneur. Why? Ingenuity. The entrepreneur is the only one who knows how to function outside patterns that are created by society. Why is that important? Why am I saying this? What did seminary teach me? Seminary taught me that it isn't the individuals who go get educated religiously that make the difference in religion or spirituality or God's kingdom. It's the entrepreneurs that go through the hardship and are willing to give up the money. That doesn't mean they give it up. but it means that it comes last. It means that they're serving God and that the money is a tool to continually serve him, serve the kingdom. Why is it important? You build better employees. They build better families. They build legacies. If you bring Christianity into your business and anchor it, that builds God's kingdom. More Christians are born. More employees are Christian. Look at In-N-Out Burger. If anyone wants an example, don't look at Chick-fil-A. They are not closed on Sunday because it's religious. He just didn't want to work 6 days a week. He chose Sunday because it was a holiday. It's not, we just have to be careful of the context. We've created a marketing context that's religion while they're closed. There's a difference between putting a biblical verse on every package and owning it and then just being closed on Sundays because your employees need a day off and it just happens to be the day off. That's biblical. Those decisions aren't the same. How you get there is not the same. It's not contextually the same. And lastly, why am I bringing this up? Let's anchor the verse of the 2 children in the Bible. Okay, the 2 sons. One says no, but does the work anyway. The other one says yes, but doesn't do the work. Who's rewarded? The one that said yes, that didn't do it, or the one that said no, but did it anyway? So if I'm saying no, and I'm not going to college, but I'm saying yes to doing the work anyway, then that's the entrepreneur. Who do you think that God wants in this world? Why are we being called to discernment? Who discerns the most? The entrepreneur. Why? Because we have to make our way in this world, because we have to deal with struggles with humans, with taking care of a flock as a shepherd that no one else does. Okay, so I'm going to anchor this for everyone as I talk to Trajan about his story. Okay. I'm going to ask your first question here, Trajan. We talked a little bit about you started a business, you're young, you've been alone a lot. You found someone who's sort of your manager, and I've met him, and you guys do some of the reels together. You've got someone doing photography and videography, and you're building this community around you. But the initial phases of this were struggle with family dynamic, and then doing something that your friends weren't doing. They were all in school, getting an education. You're like, I'm going to do this. Let's talk about what that was like, because you are alone at this point, right? You're a completely empty vessel trying to build something.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard not to remind myself that I am alone. I think a lot of the time. 'Cause, like you said, I do have my manager and like my friend that does the photography. A lot of the reels I do and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like, it's difficult doing it all on my own with such limited resources in terms of time or like physical, mental capacity. And yeah, a lot of the time I feel like I'm very tempted towards just like spending some time and looking for like a mentor to like sit down with me every week and tell me if I'm making the right decisions or stuff like that. But I think part of me fears that they're not going to be the right person, or they're not going to be the type of person that I'm looking for. So I'm very big on, and I think I mentioned it on the first episode, I'm very big on like, if they're not where I want to be, then I don't want to listen to them.
It's good advice. I would say it's why some people have problems with institutions, education, professors, or teachers who don't have any experience in the real world and the things that they're teaching, right? But how can someone be a professional teacher and a professional business person, right? But Jesus
Right.
figured it out, and so did Peter. I mean, they all died, obviously. We're all martyred. But what I am saying, loneliness is part of it. And it took me a long time before I realized this. I hated being alone. I felt alone all the time. But then I realized in my loneliness, I was actually closer to God. And when I was alone in business, that was the time I was really spending time with the real CEO and president of the company, the chairman of the board, as I call him, when it's business time. And God will tell you, and from the mentor, I agree with you. We all need mentors and guidance, and 100% someone that's where you want to be or what you want to do. I think there's probably some people I have in mind that would be a good fit for you. that are building restaurants right now or chains that are unique for you, even within the community. But, I think a mentor is someone who's willing to invest in you and watch you grow. I think that spiritually, that is a good decision. Let's talk about starting a business in general. We talked about it on the first episode. There's been a lot of things that you've learned since opening and even since we recorded the first episode. How do you deal with your day-to-day? Because you have a lot going at you. You're learning, you're young, you're started a food business, you're trying to create new products, you're trying to weigh social media. So let's talk about a day in the life of you. What does your day look like? What time are you up? What time are you down? What are you doing? And how are you continually pushing forward?
Yeah. So I think it's funny that you mentioned that a lot has changed since the first recording. And I think even a lot has changed since even the second recording that we did a couple of weeks ago. So I think something that I've really been trying to implement recently, like very recently, I think last week I started doing it. But Alex Ramosi had this video that talked about splitting up tasks, like spreading them out and then just focusing on one at a time, which I was doing day to day, but I'd never thought of it as doing like dedicating like a week of doing it. Because I was always like, okay, I have to do all of these simultaneously. But by trying to do all of them simultaneously, I'm never going to get any of them done properly. And I think just by switching day to day was a lot like more difficult rather than what I've been trying to do. Like last week, I was just trying to figure out like financials and stuff like that. So spending all of last week figuring that out made it way easier, and then not having to worry about like, oh, what video am I going to post? And then like, oh, I also have to, there are some things that I obviously have to do, like ordering supplies and making sure operations are still running smoothly and stuff like that, which I just trust my manager to like let me know what's slow and stuff. So I just order it. So, but like, for example, this week I'm going to focus on just cleaning the shop and like reorganizing everything, making sure everything's up to code since the food inspector came last time, and just making sure everything's up to date. So that way next week I can start experimenting with my like September releases or the plan for September releases. And then after that, I can plan on like say the marketing for that or like the campaign, whatever. But just splitting up into weeks has been way easier because my mind isn't like tethered between these like constant shifting of ideas. I feel like where it's like, oh, I have to worry about the financials, I have to worry about the marketing, I have to worry about like how I'm going to get these releases out, how I'm going to whatever. I'm sure you get the idea.
Yeah, no, I'm going to ask a question, but I'm going to anchor this for the audience because I think this is important for what you're saying. And I'm going to continue into the question a little bit. What I found as Justin, and just keep in mind, guys, we're talking about a company that from day one, first contract with Kaiser, 27 employees from day one, and that grew into over 70 employees within a year very quickly. So a lot of success, a lot of volume in hospital food contracts with Kaiser expanding their hospitals, also going through earthquakes, building massive hospitals, going into New York. So the business grew. But one of the things I learned, no matter how big or small your business is, the worst thing you can do is call yourself CEO. Worst thing. As a business owner, as an entrepreneur, does the outside world maybe see you that way? Sure. But what I'm going to say is very important. And everyone's like, well, you could hire or outsource or do whatever. I agree. Except let me explain. When we were building the business, the first thing that happened, we took on a contract. We had no real way of ordering, right? We have almost 20 hospitals plus 3 long-term care homes. Plus we got Linden Gardens and some other hospital systems, as well as some other long-term care homes in California. So we're doing about 32 facilities almost from day one. And we're doing all the orders over the phone manually by hand, trying to get it down to production, 1998. Everything's done by call center, into the kitchen, main kitchen, down thing. Okay, the problem is I don't know how much the food really costs. I don't know how much the labor's really costing, even though we've guesstimated it, but I don't know. So the first job I had to do in my business as it started was be a cost analyst. I had to analyze every cost in my business to know where every single thing was, how much it cost me to make every drink, every plate, every dessert, every soup, every variation of a healthcare menu, because there's lots of different diets. Okay, that was number one. Number two, okay, was then an automated order system. Once I had the cost down and I understood it, I had to get out of the phone call systems. So what did Justin become? I became a systems integrator. Okay, information technology. And at that point, as I was building the business, I figured out I needed to hire someone and build a company within my company that could eventually stand alone as its own company, as an IT company. So why did I also build the individual pieces? Because they could be standalone businesses later. Okay, what did I go from there? I then worked with the IT company to build a central database, aka I think everyone calls it a dashboard now for the business, okay, based on Microsoft whatever. I can't remember the name of the program for some reason, but anyway, a collaboration software. And so everything was stored there, all the facilities, all the notes, all the recalls, all the issue tracking, all the maintenance for the trucks, all the maintenance for the equipment, what equipment we had, the RFPs for more stuff, what the orders were looking like as they came through the automated ordering system. I also helped Kaiser move into Seaboard for automated ordering and central production, spent a lot of time doing that in Ithaca, New York. So why am I saying this? I eventually built HR. Well, I built HR and I'm like, we don't want this. So I outsourced HR and did co-employers. Okay. So the reason I say this is because you need the skills to build your business. And while formal education helps, and it helped me along the way in getting an MBA, helped me from an international perspective as I got into my 30s. Because of the program I chose. I did not choose an education because I wanted the degree. I chose what I wanted to do and what I was short in my international experience in business, being domestic in my business. And I seeked a program that would force me to go internationally with 4 other schools other than the University of North Carolina, 139 students around the world from over 40 countries. And so I was on teams that had to deal with international business, and we had to go do residencies in a bunch of countries over 23 to 27 months, whatever it was. Why am I saying this? Because when we try to skip stages or we cut corners, or as I've just said on another podcast, play stupid games, get stupid prizes. Stupid games are cutting corners. You know what you get when you cut corners? You get stupid prizes. Really. And so that's why I'm saying it. And what I want to emphasize on the show for Trajan, as I ask the next question, is we're supposed to go through it. We have to. We have to know our business more than anyone else, and we have to be the ones that eventually let our business go as it gets into the 7-year range to become its own entity. Do we guide it as a parent? Do we make sure it goes okay? Yeah, for sure. But it takes time, and can family and relationships and business be distracting? Of course. Let's talk about you personally, mentally, physically, dealing with some of it, right? Because when you first open a business, maybe still dealing with it, everything is coming at you all at once. And we talked about breaking things into individual tasks. Let's talk about personally. Let's talk about getting a manager and allowing him to take some of the stuff off your back. Because I think you're very young. I think when we're young, most entrepreneurs want to control as much as possible. They're not willing to delegate, or if they are, they over delegate and they dump everything on someone else and they think they're the owner and have to do nothing. So both exist. That's not you. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about running the business now with employees, with a manager, and sort of being able to step back and concentrate on other things.
Yeah. So I'm still at the shop. Technically every day. I think it just depends on the day for how long I'm there. But in terms of like delegating work to the manager, Honestly, there's a part of me that wishes that I could have him do more, but oh well. Like I have him, I kind of mainly just rely on him, like to make sure everything's, or like everyone's getting their food and their beverages once, like when he's there, and that he's taking care of the employee that's with him. And then also just like relying on him to let me know whenever something's low. So that way I don't have to worry about checking supplies every time I go in or doing inventory every time I go in. And that's been the main thing. I think, yeah, like you said, opening up is like everything's coming at you at once. It's kind of hard to like not try and do everything at the same time because you have that strict deadline. Or it's like, oh, okay, I set this date for me to open. So I have to get all of this done at the same time. So that was really difficult, but also at the same time, it's easier because you don't have to be there to man the shop because you're not open yet. And I think for me, like physically and mentally, it definitely caught up to me once it opened. Because I think physically for sure, because right after the grand opening, I think I was pushing myself so hard that like I ended up getting really sick afterwards. So, I mean, kind of luckily, but like also I think about it and I'm like, man, that sucks. But we ran out of supplies after the grand opening. So then we had to close for a little while, which gave me some time to like recover. But also that never really like gave me the time to like actually fully rest because I was trying to figure out how to like stop being sick before we open and like trying to get supplies to come in time and stuff like that. And then also, I think it was kind of unfortunate that I did get sick because I lost a ton of weight. I have sciatica, which is basically just like I have a bulging disc in my spine that basically it hits the the sciatic nerve, just shoots down my leg. So after losing all that weight, I basically like lost all my progress and like trying to figure that out. Cause I was going to physical therapy like at the end of the year of last year, but then opening up in March, January, I had like the situation with my insurance that ran out, so I couldn't go then. And then February, I was just preparing for the March opening, so I never really got to figure it out. But that's been taking a physical toll on me, that's for sure. And then mentally, I think like, no matter what business you do, I think it's kind of hard to avoid that toll on that and uncertainty and taking all these risks. And yeah, I had like a video recently that I made that was more so just like a personal thing that I wanted to make. Just like do something that was like purely for me. And it was kind of just like an expression to like of how I can get sometimes or like how low I can feel. And I kind of have like a visual representation of what that looks like. So that was fun. I actually liked that how the video turned out. But yeah, I think at the moment I was like, oh, I don't make this video because like a lot of the time, like I do feel like I'm alone, so I don't have very many people that I can feel like I can talk to in terms of like the business and like all the struggles I'm going through, just because I don't know if they'd understand. I kind of fear that they'd say the wrong thing and just push me down further into that hole, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm going to talk about the sciatica thing, actually. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
In 2016 and 2017, I had a bulging disc. Maddie, Zoe, Deborah, everyone can laugh at me about this because I call it my back surgery, even though they're like, it wasn't back surgery. You didn't get cut open. But the first time I had one shot, they did a steroid injection into my spine because I tried everything. I went through like almost a year of not being able to walk. Every time I get on a plane and the plane would pressurize, the sciatica would kick up. I would have to like sit sideways. I'd cry sometimes depending on the pressurization. But I was in business and we had to travel everywhere and in rental cars and in hotels and lifting suitcases and food and oh gosh, I know what you're going through. And so eventually I got the shot. But the problem is the first time I did it awake and once the shot, they pushed the steroid into my body, I passed out. I went, like done. I don't do well with needles, okay? And which is funny, I don't do well with hospitals. I don't do well with doctors. I don't do well with needles. And I was in hospital food business 24 years. So that's one. The second time I made them knock me out and they did 2 shots. But the second time what happened is, the reason I had to go back in is I went to swing just a stone on a string over a branch, a very, very tall branch in our backyard, because we wanted a tire swing, but I couldn't throw the rope over because it was too tall. So I knew I could throw a stone with a string, and I threw the string with a stone, and it severed the disc that was bulging. Severed it. Like total collapse. Like literally 10 days we're leaving on vacation for Europe for the winter, for Christmas, to go to Austria, Germany, and Italy. And that happened. But the 2 shots on my back, the steroids, I'm not kidding you, in 3 days, I was like a whole new person. Like 3 years of my life that I on and off with the sciatica and the discs and all that, it all went away. So I recommend it. And I did it over at CU Stedman, I want to say, Stedman something. And then they pointed, I thought it was my hip. I didn't understand what was going on. When the disc severed, it didn't feel like my back anymore. It felt like something, because my whole hip hurt, my knee, my ankle. I thought it was in my hip. And they're like, oh, no, it's your back again. And so, but they did a really good job. Off at 25, I can't remember the surgical place, even though, yes, I know I say back surgery, but it worked. Anyone who's wondering, that steroid thing into the back, it worked, man. Like your own stuff. That's my next point. You are alone, Trajan. Many of us entrepreneurs are alone. In the social media world of the secular world, which I'll call society, not the spiritual world, but if we live both ways, we like our own stuff. We cheer for ourselves. God's cheering for us. He created us. Obviously, he's a God of creation, as we discussed in the beginning. So he's rooting for us, right? He has to root for us because he has no control over our lives. Only us willing to turn over our will to him allows him to have any control, or the Holy Spirit to take root, which is where the miracle happens, which is what it is. They are not physical miracles. And while we've heard about physical things, floods, lightning, plagues, all of those things, and we know that God's capable of them, it's just generally not the practice. Okay. So at least not anymore. The other part I want to talk about is, how do you take care of yourself? Are you exercising with this sciatica? Is that because of that you're obviously needing to find different stimulation? That's probably, a very hard thing to go through. So I just want to emphasize this for the audience. The suffering, when we're like, God, am I going the right direction? And then something bad happens and we're like, oh, clearly this is a sign to God telling me that I'm going the wrong way. That's not the way it works. Okay. Theologically, no matter which way, what we are saying, what life is saying sometimes is that suffering, the obstacles in front of us, are necessary for our business or for our lives to get better. And if we don't go through it, it's never going to get better. Okay. So it's that will inside of us, that faith. That's why faith and trust is important to keep going in this situation. Also, why is it important? Because God uses us. What did I just talk about? Trajan's young. He's got a lot of friends, other people we went to school with, people that are like, what's going on here? All of a sudden, this guy started a business. He's having somewhat of success. It's known. People are coming in the door every single day. So that's the test of the testimony. So it's important that when we're being watched, that we do go through suffering, because now we're a model and a leader, and God's using it for us to inspire others to go through it too, especially when we're young. If we're the only one and we're one of the first ones to be an entrepreneur, guys, guess what? We're the one chosen to make the most mistakes. So I want to anchor that too. Let's talk about creation. You've got a hot food kitchen that's back there. We talked a lot about donuts. Where is all of that now? I know things have changed, but you got this beautiful hot kitchen in Hood. That's a unique item, and anyone who's tried to put it in the Hood knows they cost $15,000 to $20,000 minimum. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about creative you, because that's what got you here. Creative you is what wanted to be an entrepreneur in the first place. Let's talk about the creative you right now.
Yeah, so luckily the hood vent was already there when we took it over or took over the lease. So I didn't have to worry about that expense. But I think I do want to take advantage of it with the donuts, like you were saying. That's part of my planned September release. The donuts, and then I also want to try and do hot teas. But yeah, the donuts are they're called malasadas specifically. They're Portuguese donuts, but they're super popular in Hawaii. And yeah, I'm really excited for those. I want to get that done. And then, yeah, I guess in terms of the creative aspect, I think I was talking to another business owner yesterday, actually. And I think a big problem with a lot of like small businesses is that like the owner always has a ton of ideas, but with such limited resources that they can't really execute very many of them. So it's very just committing to a couple of them and making those work rather than trying to make them all work.
I love this, and I only agree 50%.
Okay.
Here's why.
Tell me
I'm going
about
to
it,
say
yeah.
this. It's very important that you write down your ideas, as many of them as you can when you have them,
Mhm.
even if you never execute them right now.
Mhm.
Because I will tell you 9 out of 10 times, if the idea floated across my head, it was meant to be there for a reason, or an anchor, or I need to go back and remember it, or sometimes I just scroll through ideas when I was trying to find wisdom and it was already there. It had been given to me years earlier. So here's why it's important, guys. Miracles do not happen when we see them. Miracles happen when the individual experienced the miracle internally through the Holy Spirit that changed that person's pattern that would eventually lead to a miracle. Okay. By some miracle of any way, shape, or form, there was some human influence in it somewhere along the lines. To get them there, Moses, to whatever, even if it was a burning bush, the person changed first. Moses changed first because of being pushed out of Egypt before he could see the burning bush. The miracle didn't happen until the individual happened. So that's number one. Let's talk about that a little bit, actually. Let's talk about you in general as an entrepreneur. People would call it rebellious. Okay. And we confuse this in Christianity also. I'm going to say this is in Christianity, especially in church, we use the authority of the church to emphasize discipline. Okay. However, we are misrepresenting what discipline. Yes. Should we make our bed? Should we do our chores? All of those things. But those are personal choices in our homes. Okay, does that make us better for spiritual discipline? Yes. Does it build good habits? Yes. However, it's still a choice. The discipline that we're talking about biblically is the discipline of whatever my life looks like, no matter what, I am anchored in the scripture and the word of God. That's discipline, guys. Yes. Does it mean doing the same thing over and over and over again and not expecting the same result? As insanity and discipline look very similar? Yeah, it does. But what am I saying? It doesn't matter how chaotic our lives are if there's one thing that's always disciplined: our spirituality, our faith, our trust, our relationship with God. Okay, that's the individual. Jesus went off by himself. Moses went off by himself 40 days, 40 nights. Why is that important? Because loneliness is necessary for a relationship with a higher being. But in also what's necessary for a higher being then is us to go have relationships with humans. So as an entrepreneur, how do we do that? Well, our friendships, our lifestyles mean something different. So this is why I'm saying this. I'm going to anchor this question. I went through this when I was your age, starting a business. There was this weird thing. I was in college, also had college friends. Yes, I took a little longer to graduate undergraduate, trying to do it. And I told everyone I failed 2 classes. And, but there was the fear of missing out all the time. Like, all my friends are doing this. They're living these lives. They're partying. They're building these relationships with each other. I'm not doing that because I'm so busy building a business. And I worried about it. I just want to talk to me about that, because there's a little bit of a rebellion that's going on that would look like, but in rebellion against the secular thing. And so when I was talking about Christianity earlier, guys, what I meant is Jesus rebelled against what everyone was telling him religiously. And he wasn't aiming to create Christianity. He was just aiming to better Judaism. It's emphasized. So it's not, doesn't stop who he is or what he is. He just wasn't trying to break off. So let's talk about this for you. The fear of missing out, what looks like a rebellion, but it's actually bettering the world. You've created 2 jobs, right? You're paying your taxes. You're supporting vendors. You're paying your rent. So let's talk about this struggle, the fear of missing out, what your friends are doing versus what you're doing, having to say no when you're getting invited to parties and things like that. Let's go through that a little bit and where and how and what your process is there.
Yeah. So I think just for context for everyone, I dropped out last fall from college, and I don't think I was a bad student. Actually, I would call myself a fairly good student. I feel like I'm very good at learning and like just shoving stuff into my short-term memory, which I feel like which is very much rewarded in school. I feel like just being able to have everything in short-term memory and then you just forget it afterwards. But I feel like I'm very good at that. Or I guess also just like learning normally, like actually trying to learn stuff. I'm also very good at, which I think helped a lot trying to be an entrepreneur. But I think in terms of missing out, I think it is a huge sacrifice. I think there are a lot of things that I can't do nowadays. I mean, I was talking about it with one of my friends the other day, and I was just talking about how a lot of the time I'll feel like I have every right to complain, yet I'm the only one that doesn't. Right. So it's then because I don't really get to eat out, right? I don't get to go to these parties or hang out with my friends, or like even like something that I'm like really big into is like climbing. But since that's like fairly expensive, I can't go climbing. And just stuff like that, like everything that like I really enjoyed and valued before opening my business, I don't really get to do a lot of it anyways, which I kind of had like a little, I don't know, not a breakdown, but I was fairly upset because actually the first of this month was my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I don't really like telling people my birthday in general. I think it's just a fear of like, I don't know. It's a thing that I've had since my childhood. So I usually don't tell people my birthday, but I think it's relevant to the topic. But for my birthday this year, I felt like it was so important that I wanted to do something for myself, or like I wanted to take one full day off. It was like the only day this year I was willing to give myself like fully off. And I think there were some circumstances where it made it so that I couldn't do it. I had to go in to close the shop. So I was like, out of probably like 4 or 5 things I wanted to do that day, I got to do 2 of them, which is like fine. I'm like happy with it. I think I was just sad in the moment because I was like, with all the sacrifices I've had this year, it was the one day that I wanted to myself, but I didn't get to have it, which I think is just a small sacrifice in the long term. And I think I know one day I'll be able to do the things that I want. I think, yeah. So
yeah, it's a little bit tough. I'm gonna say this actually because I agree with you. I think I do this a lot too. You have plans, there's things you want to do. When you have family, it's even further down on the list. And then as an entrepreneur, everyone is always before. So talk about washing feet. But yes, I agree. Oddly, the entrepreneur, we make a choice just like everyone else. Everyone else complains about their choices, yet we don't because we know that we make them. And we've made it with intent. I think if everyone understood that they made their choices with intent, they would take more ownership of them. That's one. Number 2 is, oh gosh, this is a beautiful lesson. I'm going to say this. Why is it that arranged marriages work and can still be Christian and love can be formed? And why is it that we think we have love and marriages happen and then there's divorce and there's really no love and maybe not any love in the first place? Okay. Because as human beings, we mistake a feeling, an emotional attraction, sometimes, mostly, as love because we saw it in our parents maybe or whatever. But the reality, biblically, Jesus, what love really meant, service, we see that, but it's actually patience, the ability to listen, the ability to be patient through any circumstance, to react to anything with patience, grace. I don't always do this, so it's not coming from my standpoint. It's coming from the model that it is. And so when we look at patience and am I in this situation willing to argue with the individual across from me, or am I being willing to be patient, let them be heard, let it reflect, maybe even mirror by having silence, and then allowing the individual to learn internally, meaning the Holy Spirit to take root to whatever. So when we talk, people are like, gospel, spread the good word, the good news. He's here. Everyone thinks that I don't want to go around talking about Jesus. Yeah, no kidding. That's not what it means. The good word is that we all can be saved and have salvation, which just means that we can have peace. And how do we get peace? We gain patience in life, in love, in our families, in our businesses. We gain patience. We don't try to do everything when I want it, how I want it, in the time that I want it. And for entrepreneurs, this lesson is learned always. Nothing is ever in our control. We can strategize, we can point, and we can do everything necessary within our duty. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying take your hand off the steering wheel or stop building the plane as you're flying it, because God will only do for us what we can't do for ourselves. But what I am saying is strategically we can point, but listen, AI killed coding, killed those businesses. That's out of anyone's control that went to school and got coding, unless they were aware of it through discernment, God-given, and said, I got to go do something else. You know what else I should do? Oh, I should be in food because food never goes away. You know what outlasts the fall of empires? Oh, food. Oh, yeah. So, let's talk about it. And what was Jesus, guys? We always say he's a carpenter. He's a lot of things, not just a carpenter. But what does that mean? It means he was ingenuitive. It means before he turned 30, which is really old to become someone that's preaching. By that point, he had a lifelong experiences, all gaining the human experience to get there. It takes experience, guys. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes time with God. It takes time learning our lessons. It takes time reflecting, and it takes time letting go and allowing sometimes things to just happen and making the best of them. So what is patience? How we react to bad things mostly, because that's life. And how do we show love? Well, people make bad decisions. We make bad decisions. We give them grace. The same grace we want. That means that's patience. That's love. So what am I saying? I'm saying if we really think about it, and love is something that has to be earned and work on and built like trust and faith, then we have to understand that it's rooted in patience and allowing the other person their grace and time to grow. Okay, so what does that mean? Why am I bringing that up right now? Okay. Our businesses are the same way. We have to have patience in them. We have to have patience with the individuals in them. And we have to have patience with the fact that it needs time to grow. And we have to have patience with God and his love for us, that if we're an entrepreneur and we're praying on a regular basis, that it's not that he's not answering. It's just that whatever we're asking for is a skill that's gained on a human level. It's not a spiritual level. And so people are like, oh, if you want patience, he's going to give you things to exercise your patience. I don't know that that's generally true, but I do know what's generally true. When we go face something, it becomes larger. And if we fight something and we go to fight something, it learns more about us and we learn more about it. So of course it becomes stronger as we become stronger to fight it. So at first, fighting something is always an uphill battle at first because it becomes stronger against you as you become stronger against it. Good versus evil. It's the way it works. Okay. So patience, guys, patience in our business, patience for each other, patience for those that don't live life the way that we do. What would you say for you right now is your biggest support system, Trajan? Where do you find the most support for what you're doing?
I think I have a couple like really close friends that I value a lot, and I think a lot of the time I probably should be exercising like the ability to like talk to them more often. I think something that's comforting me recently is that my best friend, he is also like he started his own business as well, like fairly recently. And like just knowing that and like that he's going through the same struggles as me is kind of comforting, and just knowing that like we always have each other to rely on, even though it's like different type of business, but we're doing the same thing in a way. So it's like it's nice to talk to him every now and then. I like that a lot because he like and he understands like exactly where I'm at because he's like in the same spot, and he's also like a lot of time it's like issues with like cash flow, or like I feel like that's the biggest one.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It never ends. Actually, I don't know that it ever ends, even with success. I like that. I like that a lot. I think that that's very important that you have friendships, fellowship in our businesses. And we talked about this on some other episodes, and you and I talked about this before. You know, you have the individuals that are going to be lateral, meaning that are where you are, that are your support system where you are. You mentioned a mentor, get you to where you're going. And then, you know, there's also your fellowship, which in some cases, if it's from a disciple standpoint in business where you're training individuals to eventually run your businesses and go spread your businesses across the world, no different than the apostles did for Christianity. I'm not saying they're going to die for your business, but what I am saying is you're doing the same thing. That's a very good lesson, guys. Okay. Why am I saying this? Okay, let me set up the framework for everyone. Jesus had John the Baptist equal. Okay, the person that was going through something similar to him, did they eventually split up? Yep. Did both of them get killed? Yep. John the Baptist, the last prophet, sure, of the Old Testament, or however they phrase it. I don't know that that's true. But either way, why am I saying this? Then who's the person above the mentor in both their cases? Well, God. But along the way, they had people that mentored them, or people they learned from, or discernment that led them to say, we need to speak up. This is wrong. We need to do it differently. And then there's eventually the apostles, the disciples. It's no different in business. And again, I keep anchoring it to entrepreneurs because we have the most influence in the world. And for you, you're already influencing 2 individuals, plus all your customers, plus anyone you touch on social media. The food is your vehicle. Now it's just, what do you do with it? And I'm not saying you should do this, but what I am saying is what In-N-Out uses their food as their vehicle is why they put the verse on each one. And if anyone goes back and listens to Peter Elias's episodes on here, he started with one business, the Spain wine bar, okay, in Ocean City, a seasonal place, a beach town. He's open year round. His business is booming. It makes north of $8+ million a year, one business. And because of it, he's opening 4 more restaurants this year, which we've had them all on this episode, on this show. And we're getting Peter back on, and I will be with him in the fall. So why am I saying that? Well, what does Peter do? Peter does the same thing. Peter was a real estate guy. Then he got into food, and he struggled for 10 years. And then decided to go to some no-name town in Maryland and try to open a rooftop Spain wine bar. Listen, the vehicle, the purpose, that's the anchor, guys. And if you're 7, 10, 12 years down the road or 1 year down the road, you want the level, it's an upping. Why did I ask Trajan to be back on the show? Because he's getting customers in the door every day. His business is doing well. He's got a unique product and it's a good vehicle for something greater. He's already got the magic that's leading him to, what am I going to do with all of this now? I think you got to figure out the hot food thing first, but on a greater level, we're starting to understand that what happens in a leader. And I'm going to leave this with everyone also. Okay, this is not true. You can go look it up. The historians have booked it. There's a very, very, very high qualified professor. I think it's at, I want to say Georgetown. I'll have to look it up. That's done some work on this. But one of the things that has been left out of history books in the United States is a story of George Washington during the French and American War, or whatever, when the British were still here. During that time, George Washington, he was a messenger or a runner, whatever they were. And the Indians knew if they killed the runners that the messages wouldn't get to the places, and Native Americans, however the term is. But either way, Indians, Native Americans would disrupt the communication channels because they know it would cause chaos amongst the British. They would shoot them dead, marksmen. So the Indians became really good at marksmanship as they were riding away to shoot them while they were riding away. Okay. Years later, George Washington's who he is. He's rising president, whatever. One of the Indian chiefs, who was the chief marksman, is like, I at least shot you 17 times. I at least shot this man 17 times. I have to know who this man is, because the only reason, I changed and I am who I am is because I literally, and for this nation, is because I literally tried to kill this man and I shot him 17 times and he didn't die. And so it's an anomaly. Okay. That this guy, they're like, okay, you have a guy, he's forming a nation, it's a free nation. Did we make mistakes with slavery and racism and God knows a million other things outside of that as well? Of course we did. But it's important that a nation built under God, built by a person that's chosen maybe by God, who didn't want to lead a nation in the first place. He never wanted to do the terms in the first place. He never wanted to be president. And we were able to make the mistakes and learn from them and be a nation that is willing to learn from our mistakes and change from the very beginning. That's important, guys. And it's important in God's kingdom, because God created us to be of our own will. That means growth. That means we take God's tree and we turn it into a piece of furniture. But we can also take God's tree and turn it into firewood and burn someone's house down if we wanted to. So what do we do with what God's given us? Okay. I'm going to anchor that for you as well. I'm going to anchor that for the audience. TropiTai, guys. Where can they find you online, Trajan?
So on most social media, it's just going to be at TropiTai, TropiTai. So Instagram, TikTok, technically Threads. I'd say I'm most active on Instagram. So if you're trying to keep up to date, definitely go there.
Yeah, I love it. This is going to be my last question. What's your favorite thing about the business right now? Because I got a lot more questions. I'm going to come in, see you, and then we're going to do a part 3 also, just so the audience knows. I'm not going to let this guy go be on the world all on his own when I know it's like to be one of the only 18 to 20-year-olds on the block starting a business. And there's also a girl, Anna Lee. Anyone should listen to Belle Fries. She started a business at 21, Belgian fries in New York City, and now her business is multiple locations. She's doing ups and downs and learning her way through things and has mentors and stuff as well. So that might be a good connection, but everyone should go listen to her episodes as well, because she's quite an entrepreneur, started young. But favorite things in the business right now?
I think favorite thing, I guess it also kind of branches into the last question for the support, which is and I forgot to mention, but I think recently I've been meeting a lot more like small business owners as well. Like the other day, I was just at Costco and I recognized someone else that I had seen on social media before. He owns a coffee shop. So I was like, oh, no way. So then I talked to him, and then I've had a couple other business owners that have come into TropiTai. So I try and make my effort to like go visit them every now and then and sit down and chat with them, because it's also comforting to talk to them, just so we can both sit down and then they're both be like, yeah, this sucks. And then they're like, yeah, this does suck. And they're like, let's chill. So
I mean,
that's
that's the whole
nice.
thing, right? It's like war. When you have soldiers next to you or you're in the hole with someone else, it's a lot. It doesn't make it easier. There's not less suffering. It's just the companionship. It's the iron sharpens iron, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just meeting a lot of cool people, I think, is probably my favorite thing, or like at least people that are closer to my goals.
Anything you want to talk about or add before we get off?
I don't know. I mean, I think overall the business is doing better. I think this month we're like pretty close to like our top month in terms of sales, but also at the same time, this is the month that I've spent the most on expenses. So I probably also, even though I've made the most this month, I probably also spent the most this month. So that kind of sucks. But
That
so
in
from like,
food, it's always going to be the case. It's always a sliding scale. You're never those expenses you can never run from. Although there are fixed expenses. Hopefully your rent will never change. And at least not from year to year. It may change, but those fixed expenses and knowing them, that's why the cost analysis thing is really well. Knowing where those are, knowing how to leverage them. And then I'll say this also for anyone in the audience, knowing how to leverage your square footage 24/7 is a big deal. There's a reason McDonald's still stays open 24/7. And everyone's like, oh, there's no way you can get enough orders to be open 24/7 yet. Put a good food product on there, make it the star of your show, limit your menu down after whatever time. And I hate to say it, guys, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you just need to put in the time and seeing if the delivery business or whatever, because McDonald's is still open. Wendy's or a Taco Bell is still open 24/7, grabbing people's attention. Now, could I be like, well, I can't compete with them. Why would I be open 24/7? The thing is, you can't compete with them yet. Offer a promo at night, do something, incentivize. There's all sorts of things, guys, but I will tell you that as the world changes and people are not working 9 to 5, less and less and less, more and more individuals are having to get into service businesses that can't be done by AI that get off at 11 o'clock at night. Hospitals, hotels, restaurants. In those services businesses, someone needs to service them from 11 to 7 in the morning. And they're ordering food. So I'm not saying to do it, but what I am saying, if the entrepreneur is willing to build that segment, like I just said, sometimes you have to go in and build it yourself. And in my own case, the mistakes I've made, I will 100% say to the audience with confidence, the very mistakes I've made had everything to do with I made an excuse that I didn't have the time. I made an excuse that I didn't need to do it anymore. I made an excuse that someone else needed to take ownership of it, and I didn't go build that business segment. And it suffered and it lost and it broke. Or if I went to go build it, I left it too quickly. That was my other mistake. But it's important that we go do it, but we have to be willing to be the one to put in the hours to do it, because no one else is going to do it, and we certainly should not spend our good earned money on it if we can spend our time. So, but I like what you're doing. I'm not saying to go in business overnight right now, but I do think your donuts, there's something there on a greater level, and a hot food thing that definitely has the potential for you. And I am saying it for the audience as well. Use that square footage. And if you're in the food business, guys, we're going to talk a lot more about this, especially in food trailers. I've got a lot of cool things that are coming your way, things for your trucks, things that will enhance your experience, things that will cheapen your adventures so you can take your food trucks farther. If you're in Texas, you can now go across the whole state on one food truck permit, What does that mean? Travel. What does that mean? You need to be more mobile. What does that mean? If you got a food truck and trailer and you are in Texas, you better get your butt on the road and build that business every place you can when you can. And it means your hours and time on the road are going to get greater, which means you need to think about your truck as also a place you're going to be spending time in and using to leverage your trailer. Sleep, eat, stay, open longer, park the trailer, why close? How do I get food from a commissary? Well, Texas changed some of that too. So these things are coming for everyone. In terms of TropiTai, guys, I'm telling you, it will change your life. Changed mine. It opened my mind. I saw things a lot differently. I got to experience it. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to try more. And I will tell you, it totally blew away my taste buds. I haven't had anything like it. So that's for you guys. One more time, Trajan, where can they find you online? What's your address so they can come to you in person?
Oh, yeah. So at TropiTai, pretty much any social media. And then the address is 98 Wadsworth Boulevard, Suite 122 in Lakewood, Colorado. But if you just look it up on either Apple or Google Maps, I'm sure you'll be able to find it.
Awesome. And the audience, guys, like, share, comment on the episode if you're listening to it or you like TropiTai. The episode does better. The algorithm does better if you like it. That helps them. Like their content, social media. If you're in Denver or visiting Denver, go to TropiTai. You just gave the address. It'll be in the episode notes. You'll see a reel of it on Instagram. Going to create another one for everyone. There's already one on there now if anyone wants to look. I have some other reels going up there for everyone. I'm just behind travel restructuring GorillaBrave. So the last thing for everyone is, again, this episode, this show's free, okay? And it doesn't cost anyone anything. It doesn't do anything. The education's free. The entrepreneurs come on here, they grow, but they're also doing it to grow the audience. So while there's no fee, no cost, no price, if you're standing there and you're getting into education or you're wanting to support these guys, you've got to help them out. You've got to like, support, comment on the episodes that they're on. It helps their voice get out there, and no other way other than through podcast format or YouTube format or TV shows. But I would argue even Drivers, Dine-Ins, and Dives does not dive into the entrepreneur story and who they truly are. It dives into a dish and maybe a little bit of their story, and it helps their business and it promotes them. I believe it's good. It's not bad. It promotes them. This is just different. This is their story. This is their reason. This is a continuation of a lot of these entrepreneurs who have now been telling their stories, some of them for 4 or 5 years, and few pies cases. We're getting to understand it. We're living the journey, because education is not just a stamp in time. It's continuous. So like it, comment on it, share it, support the entrepreneurs that are on here, listen to their story. All right, guys. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys, and we're out.